Well, thanks very much, Bob, and thanks and Alexandra. Thanks for inviting me to talk in this very interesting series. I really think sound studies, I've been pushing the field of sound studies. We have visual studies. Sound studies is an exciting new interdisciplinary field, and I've been pushing it, for about, I suppose, about the last 6 or 7 years. And I really think with series like this, there's so many special issues coming out on sound studies. I've just edited with Karen Beckersveld, a Dutch historian of sound at Maastricht University, the Oxford Handbook of Sound Studies, which gives sound studies particular inflection in terms of science and technology studies. Is that me beeping?
It's a sound studies.
It's a sound studies. Material is hitting back, yeah. So it's great to be talking in this series on sound. So the talk I'm going to give today is of a study that was completed a couple of years ago, and the world of the internet changes so fast that already this site, when we did the study, it was the biggest site of its sort, and of course it isn't anymore. So it's already very dated, this site, AcidPlanet. So we're going to focus upon digital music making that's shared amongst a group of internet users. Now, websites dedicated to this form of musical production and consumption are generally part of what has become known as Web 2.0. And most Web 2.0 sites are social networking sites, Facebook and so on, and may include the uploading and downloading as a feature. But this website I'm going to talk about, AcidPlanet.com, henceforth known as AcidPlanet, is dedicated to the production of music made by its users, and most of the users are in fact amateur musicians. You won't find people like Madonna and some famous people with recording contracts, famous musicians on this website. They share their songs, review each other's creations, and they enter special remix and mashup competitions promoted by the website. Now, as I said, when I did this study, and by the way, I'm indebted to Kat Afiancids, who was a research assistant and co-author of when we write up this stuff. He's not here today, but it's really our joint work together. When we did this study, an empirical study of users of this website, it was the biggest one of its sort. This website is now owned by Sony. I'll give you a little bit about the history of it in a moment. And it offers a special software program called Acid. And this Acid software, if you've heard of GarageBand for Mac, this is sort of like a very similar type thing. This software turns a computer, your laptop, whatever, into a digital recording studio, enables the making of music by the downloading of repetitive samples of music known as loops. And it's the loop-based, and a lot of electronic music, in particular electronica, that this website specializes in, though it does have a whole variety of genres of music. So this talk is not going to be an exhaustive review of online music. Rather, what I want to do is present an ethnographic study conducted really of this one online music site. Now, in terms of the kind of analytical themes that I'm particularly interested in, there are 3 themes that, as a sociologist who come from science studies looking at sound, I'm particularly interested in. Looking at this online world, I'm particularly interested in how reputations are achieved. I'm interested in reputation economies. I'm doing another study of, in a different domain, of Amazon.com book reviewers. Well, it's now product reviewers, and that's a very interesting phenomenon. There's a reputation economy developed at Amazon where you can assess how useful book reviews or product reviews are to you, and you become a top reviewer and so on. So something very similar is happening at this AcidPlanet website. So I'm interested in these reputation economies. I'm also interested in a more standard notion from music of musical identity and what the internet offers here and what this website offers. And I'm also interested in the connection between the online activities of these folks and their offline activities. And I always try and avoid anything like the distinction between virtual and real. I try and say offline, online. The two mix up together in interesting ways. Okay, if there's one analytical notion that I'm using in this talk, it's the notion of transduction, which Stefan Helmreich, an anthropologist at MIT, who's also working on sound, has used. And this is where you get interesting links between sound studies and visual studies, because a lot of media translate between, backwards and forwards between visual and audio. And we need terms for that. And it's also into the haptic dimension as well. And transduction is one such term for this translation. You could use translation as a term, but I'm using the term transduction. And one of the interesting things about this website is it's all about sound. I mean, people are uploading songs, downloading songs, reviewing songs. But ultimately, things like words and symbols play a really important role. So the sound has somehow been translated into symbols and words. And that's an important part of the reputation economy which this website establishes. So that's a kind of analytical theme which I'm interested in. So let's talk a little bit about the history of this AcidPlanet. It's an online music community, differs from file sharing. Users provide the content. At the time we did the study, these figures are always difficult because not all these registered users are genuine users, but it was the biggest one at its time. Membership is free. It started in 1999, owned by Sony since 2003. Let me just tell you a little bit, I'll read a little bit from the paper here, from my talk, about this history. It begins with an independent software company, Sonic Foundry of Madison, Wisconsin. In 1998, Sonic Foundry launched the first version of ACID software. The program uses drop-down menus to facilitate the building up of complex multi-track compositions by recording numerous individual tracks in real time. If you're familiar with these are all very similar in this way. The user can modify or add sampled sound or sound from real instruments to any individual track, thus turning the computer into a complete recording studio. Based on the new opportunities that this software afforded music hobbyists, a separate Madison-based firm developed the first version of the website, named AcidPlanet for the first time, which Sonic Foundry brought in-house and launched in 1999. Dave Hollenden, who was AcidPlanet's webmaster from 1999 to 2005, explains, "People are able to make music they didn't have any way to do in the past, even if they don't really have a musical, physical nature, as far as playing an instrument or something. It gives people a chance to have that feeling of making music and getting it in front of people and getting a pat on the back and patting other people on the back and making friends and so on." So it's this combination of patting on other people on the back, this reputation economy, and giving you new sorts of users a chance to make music. I think is the key thing about this website. The original purpose of the website, created at a time when every new business needed one, are not entirely clear, but over time it's evolved as a primary place to post, download and review the music creations of people using this ACID software. In 2003, Sonic Foundry was bought by Sony for a reported $18 million. From the perspective of the AcidPlanet webmasters, Sony's intention for the site are not always clear. Direct sales of Sony software products are a small but significant part of the website business, but the site overall is more important as a promotional vehicle for this form of music making. By the way, many people mistakenly think that somehow Sony, the recording side of Sony, is going to sign up artists from AcidPlanet. This hasn't proved to be the case at all. The two wings, the software wing and the recording part of Sony, are very separate. And people at Sony have explained they wouldn't want to do that because they have their own ways of promoting bands. And this isn't a big enough website. It hasn't got a big enough fan base like MySpace used to have, like Facebook has and other websites, to actually generate enough fan base to make something into a hit. So they're not using this website for finding new musical talent. Is Sony's? That's what they tell us. Leave it to you to judge. So our study. Let me just move on. There's some of the dates there. Production. This is a typical Web 2.0 thing. Production and consumption are blended together. So with this website, people are producing music and they're consuming music as well. Makes it particularly interesting. Here's some of the things, before I tell you a bit about our study, that go on and attract people to the website. Contests are really important for people at this website. There's mashup and remix contests. There's often 4 or 5 going on at the site at a particular time. Remixing is the most common. I think everyone here knows what mashups are these days. I don't have to actually explain. Sometimes I play a mashup, Doctor Who mashup sometimes, but I won't do that. I think everybody here in this series understand. You all understand what a mashup? Everyone knows what this is? Good. Here's peaks of web use. And one of the biggest peaks, that first peak, is when AcidPlanet had some Madonna songs for remixing. And the users we've interviewed, they really loved that. Here's a guy in London. He says, I mean, my God blimey, you just started your music career as such, you get the chance to remix a Madonna track that she may well hear. I mean, how much of a buzz is that going to be? Could you imagine how much of a buzz that's going to be? That's going to be a massive buzz, isn't it? Okay. Okay, this is another statement about, so this it echoes this Web 2.0. AcidPlanet is somewhere where you can be just an absolute hobbyist or a fairly accomplished or a power user. So there's all sorts of users you can be at this, or a real casual user, and still just come and upload, and you might find a place for yourself in the community that way. So, our study. So most of my work previous to this has been as a sociologist of science, sociologist of technology. I like actually going out and finding people and talking to them face to face. I'm a very old-fashioned sort of sociologist. I sit there at the tape recorder and interview them. A lot of the work done on web stuff, people sit in chat rooms. You can learn stuff from that, but it was important for me as a sociologist to actually get out and find these people. And finding them has been hard, and interviewing them has been even harder. We've interviewed 35 of them. And I just want to stress how different this is to most of the sort of work I've done in the past. When I've been interviewing scientists, they have a reputation already. You contact them, you know pretty much who they are. Here, from AcidPlanet, you might just get a profile, you might listen to a song, you might contact them. AcidPlanet has its own email system. You might contact them and arrange a meeting, and then they might blow you off. This has happened several times. And you know, we started off interviewing locally in Ithaca, went to Syracuse, and that's happened a couple of times. We've arranged to meet people in cafes, and they're not there in the place. On one occasion, we were warned. We went to interview a guy in his house, and Kat and I went to do this interview. Kat, by the way, one of the reasons I got her involved in the project is she did an undergraduate dissertation on Czech women rock musicians. And I thought it would be interesting to get at the gender angle at this website. So Kat became my research assistant. We worked on this together, and we thought we'd try and find women users. And I remember Kat and I going over, this was for a male user in Syracuse, and a friend of ours had warned us against interviewing this guy. They said, he's really crazy. You know, so we went to this guy's house. You go to this anonymous house in Syracuse. We had our cell phones with us. We're going in now. It's one of the uses of cell phones. And we got a shot because the guy wasn't just there on his own. He was there with another guy who was bald and had a huge earring. Looked really big guy. Oh my God. It all turned out to be okay. It turned out that the guy who was bald with the earring was the pastor of this guy, and he was a religious nut. Both of them were. They were trying to convert us to God, basically. But I just what it brought home to me was why people don't do a lot of this sort of, why they don't go out and find these people and talk to them. It's really hard work. And, you know, it's very different to interviewing people like I've done before for scientists and engineers who have this known reputation in place. It's much more anonymous and harder to do. I think it's worth it in terms of the sort of data we get that we collected. Okay, so let me tell you, we made a special effort to locate, observe, and interview 35 users of AcidPlanet. And we want to look at the places where they make their music and access the website. So we want to watch them doing it. We thus spent a lot of time in home studios as well as in internet cafes where some of this new breed of musician like to operate from. We mainly interviewed users who live close to our base in the northeast region of the US. Other interviews were conducted opportunistically when we were traveling. I've done some in Korea and in the UK, where I often travel. And we've also been to Madison and talked to the Sony personnel who are based there. Interviews were held face-to-face and typically last between 1.5 and 2.5 hours. 32 of our interviewees were male. 25 resided within the United States. 30 were Caucasian. The age range was from 18 to 52. Our interviewees had a great variety of experience in terms of musical tastes and backgrounds, personal histories and motivations for using the site, and the amount of time spent on the site. Some obsessively used the site, posted all their music there, and used it as a promotional tool for their own independent CD releases. Others were casual users who discovered the site by chance when playing with Acid software and in effect used the site as a place to store their own compositions. There's a variety of reasons people are doing this. But even these casual users would alert their friends and family to the existence of their musical compositions, which anyone could listen to by visiting the site. By the way, that was just a cartoon. You always feel a bit embarrassed. Now it's less. There's more older people doing this. But when we started doing this research, being an older guy like myself, being on digital stuff, it always feels a little bit, it's a young person's medium. But one of the interesting things we found out was that there was a number of older people doing this. And it's appealing to older musicians, because if you spent your life gigging, and it's a hard life, and then suddenly you can do this, you know, from your own little studio at home with a laptop, and reach people that way, it can be appealing. By the way, that's Florence. As another researcher, we have our own profile on AcidPlanet. That's us, Trevor, Kat, and Florence. Florence was a Dutch guy who was visiting Cornell, and I got him to do some interviews with Dutch users of the website. So he was with the project for a very short period of time. We had our own profile. This was important for establishing credibility when talking to the AcidPlanet people. They would check out our profile. That's what the home page of the site, if this was in real time, this would be flipping over to attract your attention. ProZone is a special level you can get to you pay a sum of money. Most users it's free. This gives you a little advantage. You can actually change the color. It offers you more colors in your profile here if you belong to the ProZone, which is not insignificant that the users tell us if you're browsing through a lot of profiles and new colors leap out. Okay, so what can you do? Ordinary users who haven't got a profile can do a limited number of activities. You can listen to other users' songs. You can go there and start listening to songs immediately without downloading any software. To explore the full range of options, a user must sign up for a profile, thus becoming a so-called citizen of AcidPlanet. Anyone with a valid email address can create a profile, and the user can have up to 3 affiliated profiles attributed to that one email address. If someone has multiple email addresses, that person can create multiple groups of independent profiles. For each profile, a citizen chooses a name he or she will be known as by other users on the website, and can choose to provide information on their profile, describing, for example, who they are, their musical style, influences, and equipment used. It's up to the individual citizen to decide what, if anything, he or she includes in the AcidPlanet profile. A citizen, therefore, can remain as anonymous, fake, honest, or informative as they wish. The user's profile on AcidPlanet becomes their main online identity in that world. The predominant activity is posting their own music attached to the profile. Each song has its own page, and so on this page, the user leaves a description of the song, including a self-rating from G to R, as with movie ratings, and choosing a genre. And I think I should have, this is about using it, uploading, down, reviewing. You can enter contests. You can join chat rooms and forums. Here are the genres. And these genres, like if you go into electronica, then you get another 30 subgenres, of course, and it's constantly splitting. So in posting music to this site, we can see one of the major differences between AcidPlanet and other MP3 download. The material the users post is expected to be their own original work. AcidPlanet will not condone any music that's copyright infringed. Of course, because of the sheer volume of music posted to the site, it's impossible for the webmaster to police music for pirated tunes all of the time. When citizens, we've heard lots of pirated stuff up there, by the way. When citizens post songs to the website, they must agree that there has been no copyrighted music used in those songs without permission. If a citizen does post a copyright infringed song and it's discovered by the webmaster or reported by another user, then that song will be deleted and that person will receive a warning. If a user continues to violate the rules and post copyright infringed songs, they can be banned from the website permanently, or at least until they re-register at the site using a different email address. Okay. Users also participate heavily in the reviewing portion of the site. We'll get to this in a moment. As soon as a user posts a song, other users can listen to it and leave their comments for the original user, as well as a star rating from 1 to 10. The only formal parameters for reviewing are that the review cannot be malicious or obscene, and if a rating of less than 5 stars is assigned, then that review must be at least 25 words long. Reviewing plays a large role in the charts. One of the most addictive things about AcidPlanet is that any song gets a chart position. This is one of those things that, like with Amazon, when the first time, if you were an author and you're on Amazon, you can see your sales ranking of your book. It's kind of addictive, these ranking things. And so here in the world of music, your song, even if it's down 738, it can leap up suddenly. And it can get #1 in one of these genres, okay? And so reviewing is linked a lot to the position in the chart. I mentioned the contests already. I'll skip over those. The prizes, by the way, for the competitions, if you win a remix competition or a mashup, it's usually not very great. But they did offer, they had a David Bowie remix, they had an Audi car. Usually you get some Sony software if you win it. The ultimate thing, of course, is occasionally this will happen as well, that an artist who's offered the music for remixing may, if they really like the AcidPlanet remix, may include it. And that of course, will expose your music to far more users, and that's very important. So that is not an insignificant prize. You can customize your experience in different ways. I already mentioned the Pro Zone. The Pro Zone. Sounds like a drug, Pro Zone. The charts are very important. By the way, your song can appear in different charts. For example, an acoustic rock song may appear on the acoustic rock chart, the all genre chart. They'll probably not have the same ranking in all these charts. Maybe #2 on the acoustic rock, #7 on the rock chart, 865 on the all genre chart. The chart position, by the way, is determined by a secret algorithm, like all these websites that talk about transparency and the transparency of Web 2.0. The algorithm's the same for Amazon.com, for how reviewers get ranked. The same at this website. It's a closely guarded secret. You can try and reverse engineer what you think it is. And it's clearly related to how fast reviews are made and the number of stars the reviews get. So if you have a lot of positive reviews immediately, you're more likely to get a #1 and go up the charts. But the exact formula is unknown. Different users place different emphasis on the charts. Some acknowledge that getting into the charts is the best way to get a song heard by the largest group of people possible. Others explain that charts are not as important to them as just getting their song heard, and still others feel that regardless of how important they say the charts are for them, they still get a tremendous ego boost when one of their song makes #1. Here's a respondent. This is the profile. Piano player. So piano player told us when his song, Baby, I'm Over the Pain, as the song is called, Baby, I'm Over the Pain, went to #1 for a week on the soft rock charts. He said, quotes, "You know something, my head was like out to here," demonstrates head being very large with arms. Okay, and we've got numerous emails in contact with a lot of these users, and when their song goes to #1, they'll often send us an email, my song is at #1, blah, blah, blah. And it's obviously important. It's one of the things that the website offers, this chance to have your music be in a chart and be high up in a chart. Who joins AcidPlanet? Learning about AcidPlanet's citizens is difficult because although they may choose to disclose information about themselves and their profiles, there's no way of easily verifying such information. Determining which profiles belongs to a person of which gender, which ethnicity, or which country even is not easy. Although the subset of 35 from the 300,000 registered users we've interviewed, which is a very small subset, tend to have accurate profiles as far as we can ascertain, because we've interviewed them, they may be an atypical sample because they agreed to be interviewed in the first place. Collecting accurate demographic information from the website is almost impossible because of the possibility of fake profiles and because users may have more than one profile. I'm interested in discussion. Anyone else? I hear a number of people looking at Web 2.0, how you overcome this particular problem. However, we were able to gain an understanding of users' perceptions of the demographic makeup of the site. For example, everyone we spoke with believed that there were more men than women. The typical user, according to citizen Johnny Breakbeat, is, quote, males from late teens to, I'd say, probably early 30s, guys who sit in their rooms and make music. That generally is what I'm finding. Here's the people he was meeting. Indeed, our own experiences confirm the huge numbers of male users. Despite explicit attempts to find and interview female users and offering an interview with a female researcher who had herself worked on gender and music cat, we were only able to interview 3 female users for this study. There's probably little surprise at the male preponderance of users of this technology, given the gender inequities found in the world of computers, in the world of synthesizers, samplers, and the like, and in the electronic dance music culture so popular at the site. Okay, other people have looked at that. The gendered aspect of AcidPlanet was apparent to the few female users we were able to interview. Women who disclosed their gender told us that they are treated differently than men by the men on the site. Citizen Hank Mushaski explains that there is not only blatant different treatment of women, but there is sometimes outright sexism. A quote, "If she, a woman, puts a song up and then you go back and read the reviews for that song, you'll see the stuff percolating up, where it's anything from like, are you hot, what are your measurements, all that kind of bullshit stuff that you find in a chat room." Mushaski went on to note that reviews for women artists would sometimes read like pickup lines, that this was this out-and-out sexism, you know, or you're a girl and you suck and you know you'll never make it. And then if those females come into the forums, it's kind of a lot of the same. I've known a couple of female artists that have left the site specifically because of that. This is him still talking, because either they weren't taken seriously as an artist or because they were basically being sexually harassed. I've heard that the now defunct chat rooms could get quite brutal at times when there was a female in there. He was talking about a specific chat room. Okay. Now, to give readers a better feel of who comes to AcidPlanet, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to describe for you 2 people's profiles. Let's start with, and I'm going to play you a couple of songs of them. Let's start with Stephanie K. Stephanie, who spells her profile name usually with a lowercase s, began playing the piano at the age of 5 or 6 under the direction of her father, who was a classical piano teacher. These are people we've interviewed, by the way. Though he taught her classical music, she says that she would change classical music into rock and roll whenever her father went upstairs. She stopped playing when she was 15, when her parents divorced, and she no longer had a piano. She did not return to the piano again until she was 25. Stephanie became a security trader, giving up her career when she got married and had 2 children. In 2001, she was inspired to write a song about a friend who was killed in the World Trade Center attack. Upon singing and playing this song on the piano for some friends, they told her that she had some talent, and suddenly she found herself pouring out lyrics at all hours of the day. Of one song, she said, quote, "I wrote the lyrics while we were eating dinner at a restaurant on a napkin. I write lyrics everywhere. I have pieces of paper in every bag I have with lyrics scribbled." Stephanie began to meet other musicians online through various forums and through her own website. One of the people she met was Alex Stangl, who was at that time an active member of AcidPlanet. Stephanie had never heard of the site, but as soon as she began to participate, she was completely drawn in and began actively reviewing and collaborating with different members of the website. She was so involved, in fact, that she says, "I was obsessed for a while. My husband got a little pissed off." Stephanie began spending several hours a day on the website, listening to music, working on her own music, and reviewing other people's music while her kids were at school and her husband at work. Stephanie was so caught up with the site that she had to limit herself. She says, "I used to be on the computer all night, but I cut back, I stopped. I'm pretty minimal now. I have my favorite list." That's something you can do, have a list of favorites on this website. And you know, people that I like, they put up a new song, I'll listen to it. Most of the songs that Stephanie posts stem from collaborations. She says that many people contact her because they want her to sing on their tracks. Stephanie does not use the Acid software. She says she doesn't have the time to learn it, although she's sure she would be able to. But she does have a small home studio consisting of a microphone, a keyboard, and a mixer. She usually goes into a professional studio to record her tracks because she says that her vocals come out better when they're professionally done. Generally, she'll bring a slew of her songs to the studio and have a producer decide which are the most promising and which need lyrical or musical work. After her session, she'll bring the songs back to her collaborators for reworking. Either Stephanie or one of her collaborators will then post the song. Stephanie says that her kids, especially her daughter, love her music and that all her kids' friends listen to it. Her daughter took this photograph of Stephanie for the profile. While her husband is not particularly supportive of her hobby, By the way, Stephanie subsequently divorced after our study ended. Stephanie says, he has started to accept it more because I put my foot down. It's like this to me. It's my passion. I found, this is what I want to do. An added bonus is that Stephanie can follow her passion from home, which means that she can still be attentive to her kids and other chores that she does. Stephanie would love for her songs to get radio play or to be recognized by producers and be adopted by mainstream artists. She does not foresee herself actually performing the songs because she says she doesn't see herself becoming the sort of woman who hangs out and performs in bars. Stephanie has been compared to Tori Amos, Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders, Kate Bush, and even Jewel, although she disagrees with this last comparison the most. The songs she's posted on AcidPlanet have attracted more attention, that have attracted most attention, are mainly rock and pop. And she has a song, which we'll hear in a moment, called Rock Me, which is one of the big hits on AcidPlanet. This is just some... Let's move on to this guy. Spitzenagel. Spitzenagel got interested in music when he was a teenager. At 14, his parents got him a guitar for Christmas, and since then he's been playing it both as a hobby and professionally. He was in a number of bands as he was growing up, working odd jobs here and there in the meantime. When he was in his mid-20s, Jim got settled in a cover band, Eddie and the Otters, and also owned a well-known record store in Pittsburgh called Jim's Records. Jim became a promoter and ended up working with many big-name bands before they broke out, such as the Police, Pretenders, Ramones, and U2, to name a few. In Jim's home studio, there are many photographs of him posing with famous new wave artists. There's one with him and David Byrne. Eventually, Jim retired, sold the record shop, moved to Ithaca, where I met him, and started his own line music store called Jim's, or Jim's Ithaca Music Shop. He also started his own recording label, Level Green Recording Company. Jim bought and became acquainted with music studio software such as Acid. Though Jim recorded other musicians for a while, he eventually decided to solely record and produce his own music. Jim has produced several of his own CDs to date and promotes them on AcidPlanet. He's a Prozone member, a perk he acquired by virtue of being a beta tester for an updated version of the site. Jim has two profiles at AcidPlanet. His main profile, this one, Spitzenagel, is where he posts his acid jazz compositions. In 2005, he began posting music he created with a recently purchased Moog Voyager synthesizer under a new name, a new profile, SMX, which stands for Spitzenagel's Moog Experiments. The reason he told us for this new profile was so that the reputation of his Spitzenagel profile would not be affected by how his new experimental compositions were regarded. So he's trying to keep these two identities separate. Okay, which is an interesting thing in terms of musical identity. Jim regularly produces high-quality music in terms of production values at AcidPlanet, and he also reviews, like Stephanie does, an awful number of other songs at the website. Okay, so let's contrast two of the songs. We actually get to hear some music of Stephanie and Jim. And let's go on, whoops, iTunes. So let's listen to Stephanie Kay's Rock Me. Whoops. That's not it yet. That's Stephanie Kay's Rock Me. So there's a whole variety of different genres on this. Now we'll contrast this with Mr. Acid Jazz, Jim Spitzenagel, and his song Pharaoh's Corvette. certain iTunes. Let's turn this down. Okay. Oh, by the way, the reason that's up is that a little interesting twist in the whole, whoops, let me go back to the Microsoft PowerPoint. There. In Spitznagel's career is that, I think Bob mentioned at the beginning of the Electric Golem that I've been collaborating with Jim myself. So this is a sort of strange situation. This guy was in part of my sample, my study, and we started playing together. And we have this collaboration called the Electric Golem, which has actually been quite successful because we've actually got now a recording contract with a label called Ricochet Dream, which is Tangerine Dreams, same label they're on. And a lot of the people on AcidPlanet are trying to get some sort of legitimacy. It's strange in the world of the internet that having a recording contract, someone else outside endorsing them, it gives you this extra cachet. And it's interesting. Anyway, so I've become involved with Jim, making music with him, this Electric Golem. Check it out on Facebook. We're using Facebook as well as AcidPlanet, by the way, for Electric Golem. How are we doing for time, Bob? Maybe I should move faster.
Well, 20 minutes.
20 more minutes, okay. So one of the things that's happened on AcidPlanet is that various new terms and practices, this is one of the things we've found. So we found chart whoring. This basically means driving, it's pretty obvious what it means, driving your song up the charts by sending blanket emails to people asking them to review your song or reviewing songs of other people positively. This is R equals R. So basically, if you review someone's songs positively, and these are non-anonymous reviews, somebody else, it's like, I'll stroke your back, you stroke mine. They basically will pay you back by giving a positive review to your songs. Everyone else is a producer on this site. So they're all producing songs, so they review each other's, and this helps their songs to go up the charts. This is called chart whoring. Haters and drive-by shootings. Haters are people who often will have a fake profile just to do negative reviews of someone's song to push them down. That's often called a drive-by shooting when you do that. These are their own terms for these things. So that we already had this quote before. So this is how it's gained, basically. This is just what I've explained already. Haters, a very small set of... there's just one point here. The webmaster can remove obviously malicious reviews, but is not empowered to remove others the user thinks are overly harsh. So if you think the review is overly harsh, the webmaster, and it's not obviously malicious, can't do anything about it. And we found this also on Amazon.com. It's one of the things that people complain about most. On Amazon.com, they're called trolls, people who do negative reviews and really affect your ranking in this new reputation economy. It's the thing users are one of the things they're most concerned about. Okay, let's move on to the reviewing. The reviewing is really important, not only in terms for chart placement, but for actually getting detailed comment of how your song has gone down with listeners. So you put a song up there and people start to review it immediately. And these are some of the first reviews Stephanie Kay got of Rock Me. So I'm just going to look here at some of these reviews in more detail of Stephanie's song and of Jim's Farrah's Corvette. So this is one of the very first reviews of Rock Me. Very nice job by all. Love the blues leads on the right. So it can be quite technically specific about things. Love the placement of the backing vocals and the bullhorn FX on the vocals was cool too. Great lyrics too. These are often very short, sort of kind of stream of consciousness reviews, but they're telling you quite lots of technical detail in terms of what the music is doing. And it's interesting to reflect on, how they're doing this. And Tom Porcello has a very interesting piece on a neophyte in the studio learning engineering skills, and how do they learn these things, audio engineering skills in the studio? How do they set up, say, drums and so on? And it's a mixture of a kind of a technical language and referring to other artists as well. It's a very interesting in-between kind of genre, and these reviews are full of this as well. So this is this point about transduction. So this sound, this sonic event, is now being translated into words, and the words are a very important form of feedback for the person who's produced the song. So here's Farrah's Bet. This is great, quite interesting. You certainly put a lot of work into this mix. It's very busy in certain places. I love the horn again, but I think you could have And so here's a criticism. I think you maybe cut it back a bit. And this book review, by the way, is by Stephanie Kay of Jim. You could have maybe cut it back a bit, and then it'd be more dramatic when it appears. Still trying to figure out why you call it Pharaoh's Covet. Cool title. Does it refer to King Pharaoh? Nice job overall. So it's kind of encouraging, but also got some criticism in it as well. Here's another example. Like the robot voices and the cool horn playing, excellent combinations and great production. Now here you get to the R equals R. And thanks for the review of Beyond the Shores of Time. So this reviewer has had his own piece of music reviewed by Jim. He's thanking him. This is the payback explicitly, the R equals R. By the way, there's a song. This R equals R is so familiar on AcidPlanet. There's actually a song called R equals R on AcidPlanet. You can check out that song. So even though, you know, when they're getting a little, you might say sexist, really, this is of Stephanie Kay, really starting to put a rump in your hump lately, lots of laugh, edgier and heavier, and we really like the direction you're taking. There's still, you know, it's still encouraging, and the hit potential of the song is stressed as well. So you can get things from these comments as well. You can get positive things from R equals R. Review ratings linked to chart placement. Users often expect extremely positive rating or none at all. People expect R equals R. So the effect of this is you have a proliferation of reviews. So people tend to do many, many positive reviews because of this R equals R phenomena. So people like Stephanie Kay, I think I put up the number, they've done something like 3,000, Jim has done like 2,500 reviews. And this is one of the interesting things we also find at Amazon.com, the leading product reviewers. They've done thousands and thousands of reviews. So people are churning out these reviews, spending a lot of time doing it. And this is Jim talking about, what do I need to do to get these people to listen? Well, I review them, and they go, oh, this guy named Spitznagel reviewed me. I'm going to check out his music and maybe give a positive review back. One of the things at Amazon.com we were interested in was plagiarism. So in doing these interviews, I always ask people, you know, do you actually copy and paste? Because this is a so-called affordance that the internet offers, the possibility of copying and pasting. And this is quite a funny quote. He said, Jim is very particular. He said, I never would copy like that. If I feel I've written a lot, the same thing, I'll get the dictionary out and I'll change a few words. Ha ha. I'll just say, I'll change creative to inventive. Oh, that's good. I'll change, you know, cool to groovy. Oh, that's good, you know. So he doesn't have a positive review. He just pastes in all the time. He will change the word explicitly. But the effect of this, of course, is that you've got these two things going on. You've got the reviews being used for the reputation economy, and the reviews being used for actually offering very useful feedback. And the two things are kind of running against each other, which is one of the dilemmas of the website. The review's potential for honest, useful criticism is lost. You do have a lot of people that are just, cool tune, man, you know. When you get a chance, check me out, hit me up, R equals R. This is an interview. It's all meaningless, you know. You don't get anything useful out of the review. So that's one of the problems at the site. Okay. Now I want to talk a little bit here about collaboration, which is another of the interesting things that this offers. As we already noticed with Stephanie, AcidPlanet offers a new way for its users to collaborate. For example, it's inspired the creation of several new online forums which exist solely for members of AcidPlanet to continue their dialogues and music creation in smaller, more private settings. So these are special forums for AcidPlanet users. One of these forums, the Acid Exchange, known as AE, has evolved according to our respondents. So it's a place both where online friends hang out and chat, as well as create and share music. The forum is a closed site. In order to become part of the Acid Exchange, users must be very active on AcidPlanet, displaying a high degree of technical competence in all aspects of their music, and be nominated by one or more people who are already in the forum. These forums are not part of the AcidPlanet site itself, but provide a space for community building amongst particular groups of users. Musical collaborations of a more straightforward nature are also catalyzed by AcidPlanet. Users state on their profiles whether or not they're open to collaborations. That's one of the things you put. These collaborations are usually accomplished virtually, as in the case with Stephanie's collaborations. The virtual band aspect of AcidPlanet is enticing to some users who may recruit or advertise for particular sorts of musicians they're looking to collaborate with. Sometimes virtual collaborations will turn into physically co-present collaborations with musicians entering each other's studios and making music together, or even gigging together, we've found. Sometimes AcidPlanet users will gather together to attend gigs or trade shows. One user who lived in London told us he regularly hosted overseas users of AcidPlanet in his London flat. And they would often go to a trade show or a gig together. AcidPlanet, therefore, is used as both a destination for users' music, as well as a point from which people are able to make connections and expand their music and musical identities. This is the last point I want to make about musical identities. Online identities and their flexibility have long been seen as key components of the internet. Many people have written about this. One of the fascinating things about making online music is that it allows the identity of the musician to be detached from the physical creation of the music in new ways. It also enables new forms of multiple musical identifiers not easily realizable in other ways. The separation of the original work from the art from its reproduction is, of course, a long-standing feature of recorded music. Advances in recording techniques and technologies of synthesizers and samplers, including software synthesizers, have further distanced the musician from the work of art. There's still clearly a musician who's identified as somehow having enacted or realized the work of art. For instance, although not realizable in live performance because of its complex studio technique, the music of Sgt. Pepper is still identified with the agency of the four musicians we call the Beatles, although people might refer to the fifth Beatle, Sir George Martin, in recognition of his production skills. With online music, such as posted at AcidPlanet, musical identity and agency are much more complicated. Often all there is a profile attached to the music. The identity of the musician or musicians, if any, and their agency in creating the music is now often solely revealed by the profile. And because musicians on AcidPlanet can have more than one profile, they can, as we saw in the case of Jim's experimental Moog music, maintain more than one musical identity. Furthermore, because a profile can be easily abandoned and a new one created, this form of online music making gives musicians the opportunity endlessly to recreate themselves. Of course, in that online identities have real-world counterparts, the affordance AcidPlanet offers here might seem of limited value. But what must be borne in mind is that many musicians on AcidPlanet only release their music by the website and never perform or meet up, as it were, live. The links between profiles, if they exist, may of course indicate that it is one and the same person behind the profile, but the formal separation of the reviews and reputations they garner means that a separate online musical identity can be viably pursued. One of our respondents, this is Hank Mohaski, claims to have many different online identities. Although he generally operates under what he deems his main identity of Hank Mohaski, he has at least 20 other profiles. Each of these profiles was created to represent a different type of music. For example, his profile, Tape Jazz Massacre, is devoted entirely to music composed of samples of songs and sound bites he's collected over a period of years. Another profile is for the Zanzibar Cheap Band, which plays music for elevators and supermarkets. And another example of a user with multiple profiles is Sky Swim, another user we've interviewed. He was the creator of Spam Haters, the female hard rock group who gained the attention and love of hundreds of users on AcidPlanet. I'm going to conclude now just with some general points. I'm not going to talk about the mosh. The community aspect of AcidPlanet is what makes it unique and differentiates it from other file sharing and downloading music sites. The community has evolved throughout the history of the website and is still evolving. Furthermore, the crucial role to be played by users of the website was realized very early on by the site developers. The original webmaster told us, this is a nice quote, I think, in the end, what we create is a shell that's filled by the users, you know. You could launch this same site today empty and people would come and look around like it was a big empty house and leave. And the users feel a lot of ownership in the site. And sometimes when we talk about bringing in a policy they don't like, they'll be very quick to say, you know, we provide all the content for this site, you know, don't forget that. The webmasters are also musicians and users of the site and are very much attuned to the role that users play in shaping the website. They pride themselves on listening to users and providing features such that users can offer feedback and suggestions for what they like or do not like and what they'd like to see developed in the future. There's a little quote here about another Sony site that was hopeless at this because it didn't pay any attention to the users. So these guys who run the website are musicians and artists themselves, and they're very aware of this, of the need to make it user-driven. The users at AcidPlanet not only provide most of the content for the site, but form a devoted community who regularly return to the site to post songs, enter competitions, post reviews, and who in many cases actually care about what is happening at the site. Users who quit the site are sometimes bombarded by emails from other users to return, and they often do return. So this community aspect appears to be more organic than regular file sharing systems. Part of this process of community formation lies in the special form mediated interaction which the website offers. Most social networking sites offer the chance for interactivity between users, such a user can post content, have friends, post links, make lists of favorites, and engage in certain forms of mediated interaction. The problems all such websites face is that every interaction with the website is actually discrete. The community can only form around the discrete users interacting with the traces, and this is the case of AcidPlanet, the songs and reviews, that are left at the website by other discrete users. The more users that can be involved, the more possibility there is that these traces and the interaction users have with them in terms of producing new traces can be monitored by others, forming in a way an audience for monitoring the interaction that occurs or has occurred. For example, a review post to a piece of music. All this sociality, which I'm particularly interested in as a sociologist, takes place even though in principle there may only be one user at the website at any one time. The sociality of such a community comes from the norms and obligations built up incrementally amongst discrete users over the course of many such interactions. The more such interactions take place and are witnessable by more users, the more likely it is that any emerging community norms will be reinforced. In other words, all these potential overhearers, overwatchers of this stuff means that community norms can be more reinforced, I think, than usual. Unlike in many social networking sites where users can, via privacy settings, restrict content, only making it available to a selected group of users. So these songs can be seen by all users. Okay. AcidPlanet seems to go beyond more pure social networking sites by not only encouraging free access to most parts of the site, but also by offering mechanisms whereby potentially large numbers of users are directed to particular parts of the content which users in turn produce. Special socio-technical instruments, and here I'm using a term from Karen Knorr-Cetina, scopic focusing technologies, that's her term, such as charts and contests, which generate hierarchically ordered outcomes, allow users to focus on certain selected pieces of content and thereby boost the reputation of the profile associated with that content. Part of this process, as we've seen, involves translation nodes or transductions, whereby the sonic dimensions of the site are rendered into other symbolic forms, mainly words and numbers. Now, in the wider field of popular music, hit charts, not to forget also the gaming of such charts with the Piola scandal, there's nothing new in this stuff, and contests are very old ways of building reputations and directing consumers of music to particular songs. What the online site does is to take these conventional resources and rework them in a new way. The key thing is that the workings of these mechanisms in the online world become heavily dependent on the activities of users. Activities such as reviewing, which determines chart position, the judging of song contests by users, which is used to award prizes in the contest, do not make these mechanisms any more transparent. As I said, the exact formula for chart placement is a well-guarded secret, but do give users involvement and empowerment. This means that reputation is social, not only in the sense that the outcomes of the charts, contests, and the like are socially available to all users, but also in the way the outcome has been reached, which is just self-dependent upon the social activities of users. It's this double sociality which helps turn discrete users into such an active and organic community. Because everyone is potentially a producer as well as a consumer, and this is the odd thing about this site, the norms and obligations that develop are shared by everyone, and there's less division between fans and artists as arise in other musical communities. Okay. I'll just read my last bit of the conclusion. What I've tried to show here in this talk is that not only are there new possibilities which this new form of digital music making offers, but also some of the problems and contradictions that arise. Although new musical identities are possible, old gendered identities are still very much manifest. Although new systems of building reputation emerge, they're based on the charts and star potential of older systems. The worlds of online and digital music are still in flux as the recording industry responds to a computer company, Apple, becoming the major distributor of music via its online store, iTunes. Contradictions abound as to the future of online music production and consumption in general. Some see it as a way of the future and others as a blind alley which will lead to little change and domination by a few major labels allied to the new distribution of online music such as iTunes. The brave new world of online music, when diffracted through the stories of the users I've tried to tell here and their clear attachment to AcidPlanet and the user-generated community around it, makes that world appear perhaps a little less brave. I'll end there, thank you.